now we'll go over how to do the awning. So the awning, you basically have little screws here that screw and unscrew. When they're unscrewed, they pop open, same as that side. You also typically have a latch. You'll undo the latch, and at that point you'll be able to pull this out, typically about 5 feet. Right there you'll have a little piece of cloth here. You can pull it out a little bit further, and this is the difficult part. You have the hook here that swings around, and it'll connect right into that little section right by the awning. It'll swing all around. It'll become somewhat of an upside down triangle. At that point, you can actually pull it out further. You'll have both of these swing around as a triangle, and you can pull it out further, and there's little notches here that pull out. And from there, you can pull out to the next level, and you can actually go out typically about 8 feet or so. Make sure to put it back in place before you go to bed, or if it's windy or raining really hard. If not, you'll break them. These aren't as sturdy as you might hope they would be, and if there's really rough weather, they can absolutely break. And at night, they'll drive you nuts if they're moving around a lot, because they'll just creak the whole night. Moving inside now, we have the interior of the Airstream. Come on in. And typically when you enter to the right side, you'll have a switch here that says use and store, and you can put it on use, and that turns on the whole system. Again, sometimes these are in just random places, and you don't, it varies a little bit depending on where what sort of model you have, but there's almost always a master switch, and that master switch will turn on the trailer, all the functionality, or turn off everything, all the power. So, and you can't even use the propane when the power switch is off. If you're trying to use a refrigerator and you're using propane for the refrigerator, it'll turn off if you turn that power switch on. So my recommendation is, if you're not using anything, you're leaving, turn it off. It'll save power. If you are using the refrigerator or anything else, keep it on. At that point, with the power on, there are switches for basically everything. You can turn on the ceiling lights, you can turn on the side lights, but there's always an additional switch. So if you turn on the ceiling light and nothing comes on, most likely it's because there's a switch up here. So you have the master switch, a secondary switch, and then a third switch. So keep that in mind, because oftentimes people say that the power isn't working, when in reality they might only have 1 or 2 switches on. Keep this light on here. You have fans here. Pretty self-explanatory. You have 1, 2, 3, on, off, hot, cold, manual, not manual. Very self-explanatory. If you can't figure it out, mess around with it for a minute, you'll get it. You have a lot of storage in these spaces. These don't have specific latches, but oftentimes they do, so you have to keep in mind that if it's shut and you can't open it, there's probably a latch somewhere that you'll have to click open before you try to force it out and break it. Typically a radio, pretty self-explanatory. You have a microwave, which will only work when it's plugged in, or plugged into shore power, or plugged into a generator. So this will only work at that point, and so will the air conditioning. The air conditioning will not work off a battery. The stove, this one doesn't have a stove necessarily, but the stove and an oven, they only work off of propane. So the propane will have to be on, you have to have a battery set on, and then you can use the stove or the oven. You have a refrigerator, dual source refrigerator. With a refrigerator, it can run on propane or shore power. And most of the newer ones, some of the older ones you have to light up, but the newer ones you have an on and off switch. You push on, it's on. It says auto. You can push it off if you want gas on. So it basically sources whatever power is available. This one's not hooked up to a shore power, and the propane is not on, so it will not work. It's always looking for power and it won't find it. Ultimately, if we open up the propane, then it will work. Again, another example of a latch. It says it won't open. Pull that, it opens up. Sometimes the latch is temperamental, but it typically works. TV. Will only work when it's powered up by shore power. Will not work off of the battery. You have fans here, all pretty self-explanatory. Lights on, fan lights on, off, light off. Storage room, bed. Again, back here, lighting. There's lighting kind of all around. Turn this on, doesn't turn on. Go up here, the light turns on. Typically over in this area as well, you'll also have some sort of thermostat for the heating, and sometimes it's around in the kitchen as well. Thermostat will turn on the heating here. Also in this general area, either inside of the bathroom or in the washroom area here, you'll have a water heater knob. So right here, water heater on. The water heater's on. That runs off of propane as well, or shore power. You have the toilet and the shower. Toilet self-explanatory, you flush at the bottom. You have the shower, very self-explanatory. And if we're not hooked up to a hose, again, and you have water in the tank, then you have to have the water pump on. And the water pump can be in different places. It's oftentimes either right in this area where it says pump, or it can be all around here where it has the master system monitor. And right here you can do the status of everything in the system, as in water in the tanks, disposal level, gray and black tank, as well as power in the battery. So this, you'll be able to check all the systems here just by turning it on, and it'll go through all the systems and figure out exactly what you have available, what you don't have available. On here you also have the pump. So this is where the pump would be turned on if you have so you can have water access when you're not hooked up to the main hose, when it's just in the tank. So that is that's that side of it. That's for the most part the general functionality of an Airstream. There's always little minute aspects of it that may or may not be included in that specific Airstream, but that runs over all the basics there. Thank you.